right. It looks like it changed things and it did not mute me automatically. It might not have muted you either. So welcome everyone to Life Hacking 101. I'm Jennifer Crispin, one of the librarians, and I'm just basically here to introduce Dr. Laura Williamson. She's the program director of the Collaboratorium at the West Houston Institute, where her focus is on helping HCC faculty, staff, and students teach, work, and learn together in a collaborative environment. I will hand this over to you now.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. So welcome, everybody. Good to have everybody here. I'm going to be going through a presentation this afternoon on how to be together in this remote environment. We can't be together physically at all, or not very much. So how can we still be sorry, I'm just trying to get my PowerPoint going. How can we still connect with each other? How can we work together? How can we study together? How can we build a sense of community? How can we work on projects together in this new world? So are you seeing my PowerPoint right now? Jennifer?
Yes, I am. I just typed it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to try to make this as participative as possible today, and have everybody collaborate in this together. And so a couple of ways that you can participate is, first of all, is by using the chat box. So, which you should be able to see in the corner of your screen. Make sure that where it says "to," it's set to everyone, and that way everybody can see what you have to say. And if you don't mind, just give a quick hi, just give a quick shout out so we can see who else with us today. So just type hi in the chat box. Ashley and Sabrina, Yemla's here. Who else? Jimmy's here. Okay, great, quick. And then if you would like to answer a question or ask a question with audio, we can unmute you. So just click on the little raise hand button if you'd like us to call on you. So I'm not seeing very much input from people. Jennifer, did you say that we have more than this in the call with us right now?
We have about 10 people.
Okay.
At least one of them is a librarian.
Okay.
We have about 9 students.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, we'll just have everybody join in as they're able to. So, so now that we're all in this remote world, I don't know about y'all, but I have been feeling very isolated. And even though I spend a good chunk of the day on video calls and watching webinars or doing presentations or in meetings with people, I still tend to feel kind of alone, right? There's just something about not being with other people that's just very different. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about some strategies that you can use to connect with other people, and in particular, how you can create effective online study groups so that you can learn with your classmates and study together, and then how you can work together if you've got a group assignment or a group project for a class that you're in. And a lot of this is applicable for other things too. So if you're in a student organization, or if you are in a church group or something like that, and you just want to connect with other people online, I'm going to be sharing some tips and strategies that should help you in a lot of different areas. So we're going to start by talking about having an online study group, what that looks like, and what are some tips to help make that be effective. So first of all, if you're a student, in the chat box, can you just put a G if you have been in a study group before, say like an in-person study group where you got together with other students, or in a remote study group. So put a G if you have been, and put an N if you have not ever been in a study group. So Sabrina has, Jimmy says he hasn't. So Sabrina, was the study group that you were in before, was that Did you guys meet in person or virtually? And if you met in person, where did you meet? How did you do it? In person. Okay. So traditionally, many students have had the opportunity to be in a study group where you meet in person. So what do we mean by a study group? This is when you get together with some other students, probably from your class, but not necessarily. And you get together regularly to help each other out, to help each other get a better understanding of the material in the course. Maybe you want to study for an exam, or maybe you just want to get together weekly and review the material that's been covered and help each other understand things. And most often students tend to get together and do this in person. And probably one of the main locations where this happens is in one of the libraries scattered around all of our campuses. But some students like to get together in just a common area of a building, or in Starbucks, or at somebody's place. Remember back in the olden days when we used to do that and be able to get together. So what we're going to do is talk about how you can get some of the benefits of being in a study group, but how you can do that in a virtual setting where you can't get together in person. So first of all, let's talk about why you might want to have a study group, why you might want to study with other students. So first of all, it can just help you understand the course material. If the course is challenging and there's a lot of difficult concepts to get, then being in a study group can help you really master the more complicated material, and it can also just help you get a better understanding and better mastery, even of the basic stuff, even of the stuff, okay, you went to the lecture, you did the readings, you did the assignment, you did pretty well on the exam, but it can still, by interacting with other students, can help you get an even deeper, better understanding that's going to help you be successful in that class and then in other classes that you take as well. So being in a study group with other students gets you exposure to different perspectives. So you might see things one way, and a different student in the class might have a different take on things, and that might expand your understanding or might help you look at things a different way, or might help you understand things differently by hearing somebody else's perspective. Being in a study group can also just help you build connections with other students. So whether we're in person or remote, it's so helpful to have connections with other students, just so that you feel like you're part of a school community, you're part of a class community. Everybody at HCC has different personal goals, but everybody is here trying to build skills and build their education. And so having connections, making friends, having somebody that you can go to just for a resource, or just find out what else is going on it's a great way to round out your student experience. And finally, having a study group can help you build some accountability into your school life. So if you know that you have to get together with your group on Wednesday, you're going to make sure that you've done all the reading and maybe tackle the homework assignments and so forth ahead of time, so that you're ready to be effective in the group. So if you need that little extra boost to help you keep on schedule and keep getting through the work that you need to do, that can be a really good, the study group can be a really good tool to help you do that. So lots and lots of benefits to having a study group. So who should be in your study group? How do you make a study group? Some people like to form a study group with friends, with people that they already know and they get along with. Maybe you met them in a prior class, or you've met them in this class, and that can work well. But it can also be really effective to make a study group with new people that you don't know, because in particular, that's going to get you some different perspectives on things. Now, I know that it's much harder to meet people right now when we're all virtual. So what are some ways that you can even find other people to connect with? So one way might be to ask the professor if he or she could help set up study groups, or maybe have a discussion post on a discussion board for your class and just say, hey, I'm looking for some people who want to get together and review the material and help each other out and comment here. If your course is set up so that you have a discussion board that you can post questions to, you can do that, or you could ask the professor if he or she could help get the ball rolling on this. You can also connect with other students through social media. So I know that there's the Eagle to Eagle Facebook group, which is very active, and students are on there all the time looking to connect with other students that they can get together with. One of the nice things of being remote is that you could be in a study group with somebody anywhere at HCC. They don't have to be in your same section. They don't have to be at your same campus. They don't have to even be in the same part of town. Since you're not going to get together anyway, it really opens up the world to who you can connect with. If you're in a student organization, you can ask around within that. You can say, hey, anybody else taking Camp 1301? I'm kind of, I need some, I'm looking for somebody that I can get together with, and just put the word out that way. Study groups are best if you keep them fairly small. Probably wouldn't do more than 4 or 5 people. And even if you just have a buddy, that's fine too. And of course, you want to find people who are available when you're available. Maybe you're crazy busy with work or your family situation, and the only time you have to study is on the weekends. Let people know that and try to connect with people with similar schedules. And likewise, maybe you've got a particular goal that you want to get out of this study group. Maybe you just want an accountability partner, or maybe you want somebody who has really mastered the material and can help you learn a little bit more. So think about what you want to get out of it and what would work for you in times of schedule, and then reach out and connect. And I will totally agree. It's much harder to do this right now than it was when you were walking into a building and grabbing lunch if you had a food area on your campus. Spending time at the beginning of class or after class, and you could talk with other students. So you gotta try a little bit harder, but ask your professor for help and use some of the tools that we have. Any other thoughts or comments from anybody else on the call, either any of our students or professors or library folks, in terms of how you can form a study group?
In about a second, I'm going to post the link to the Eagle to Eagle group.
Awesome, thank you.
Trying to get Facebook to give up that information to me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's say that you've got a group together, and let's talk about what are some things you can do to make the group work effectively. Now, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, both with study groups and with working on group projects, is true whether we're remote or whether we're in person. So some of what I'm going to be saying is applicable to any kind of group work that you're doing, but there's some special things to think about now that we're in this remote world. And because of the remote world, it makes some things even more important than they might have been before. So one thing that you want to do is I would encourage you to choose a live meeting platform that you can meet in, so that you can have video on and you can see each other and talk to each other and hear each other. All students have access to Cisco WebEx, and you can create a meeting. You can schedule a meeting with anybody that you want through that. And there's lots of how-to guides available from HCC. I guess I would start by maybe asking your professor if they can point you to some resources. And then Jennifer, if you know the link I know that there's some IT support for students on some of this stuff, but I think Online College has some really good resources as well.
Okay, let me go get those.
Yeah. Okay. So as an HCC student, you get access to all these cool things that some of your professors might be using for teaching classes, but you can also use as a student. Microsoft Teams is another platform that lets you schedule and host a live video meeting with people. Lots of students like to use Zoom, which is nice and easy to use. And with the free account that you can get, you can do up to 40 minutes. Or if you have a paid account, you can have an unlimited amount of time. If everybody's on Apple devices, you can FaceTime together. And if you have any other platforms or suggestions to share, just go ahead and make a note in the chat. And we'll see what else people like to use. But really encourage you to decide on how you're going to meet, and then take some time to figure out how to use that tool. Oh, Google Meet. Okay, so with Google Meet and you need a Gmail account. That's true. And then there's Facebook Live, right? I think, or there's a Facebook group live meeting platform as well. But Google Meet sounds cool. So there's lots and lots out there. There was a few years ago, but now that everybody's been forced into this remote world, I think everybody's up in their game in terms of what's available. So it's good for a study group if you have a platform that lets you do screen sharing. So if you want to show, like if somebody wants to put up some of the problems from the Canvas assignment or from the textbook, and you can share them and then you can all look at them together. That's really helpful if you can do that. And if you can use a whiteboard or a shared annotation tool, that also lets you interact with each other a little bit. So back when I used to be in the A-Leaf Hayes building, we had whiteboards and tables and such all over the building for students to use. And so you'd always see students up there working calculus problems up on the board, and just getting together, because sometimes writing together and showing each other something can be really helpful. So most of these tools have some kind of built-in whiteboard and screen sharing capability. Encourage you to have cameras on, at least for some of the time, because it just helps you get a better connection with people. It helps you get to know people, and it helps you communicate a little bit better if you have those nonverbal communication that you can use. If people have Wi-Fi issues, like if your setup doesn't support that very well, or if you've got privacy concerns, like if you just don't want to share your environment with people, that's fine. You certainly don't have to, but I would encourage you to try at least some of the time to have cameras on. You want to make a schedule for your group. So when are we going to meet? Are we going to meet, every Tuesday from 3 to 5? Are we just going to meet before the major exams? So figure out what you're going to do, and then make that a priority, because you've got accountability to your other students in your group. And then you want to talk about some ground rules right at the beginning before you get started with your group. And if you take the time to do this and be honest and think through some of these things, it'll make the experience much better for everybody. So here's just some examples of some of the things that you might want to talk about. And again, all of these things, if we were not remote, if this was last year and we were talking about just having a study group in the library, we would also talk about a lot of these things, but they're even more important remotely, because it's much easier to have misunderstandings and problems that you can't resolve quite easily. So you want to talk about, hey, when we're in our meeting time, can you be checking your phone and answering texts, or are we going to just focus on what we're doing? Either way is okay. Just the group should choose what's going to work for them and then stick to that. You want to have a conversation around equal participation and what the expectations are for how people are going to participate. You want to talk about your communication preferences and plans. So what are you going to, are you only going to do these live meetings? Can you text each other anytime? If you're working on your homework at 11 o'clock at night and you have a question, can you text somebody else in your study group? How do you guys want to connect and communicate with each other? It can be helpful to have some designated roles within your group. So you might want to have a host, and that's the person who might schedule and organize the actual live meetings. You might want to have a facilitator that says, okay, here's what we're going to do today, and keep things on track. And you might want to have a timekeeper that says, okay, guys, we're half an hour in, let's take a break. And okay, we're finishing up our hours, or anything else that we want to talk about before we wrap up. You can combine roles, and it's also a good idea to rotate roles. So give different people turns to take on these various responsibilities. And then finally, you want to talk about, what do you want to do in your study group? What are some of the activities that you want to do? Where do you want to spend your time? What are some of your goals for these groups? So sometimes students will say, hey, let's have a study group, and then they just get together and they sit around the table, and they're not really sure what to do with their time, or what they're trying to accomplish. And so having this conversation up front and then regularly as you go on throughout the semester is really important to make sure that you're using your time well. So what are some things that you can do while you're in your study group and in your virtual study group? So you can take time to review class notes and review the readings and the videos that you've watched, and maybe you want to summarize back to each other, or maybe you have something that was confusing to you and you want to see if somebody else can explain it to you a little different way. Maybe you want to assign different parts of the chapter to different people, and then your job is to kind of teach that part of the chapter to each other. And if you haven't ever had this experience, that teaching somebody else material is the absolute best way to learn it yourself. And you may think that you understand something, but when you try to explain it to somebody else, that's when you realize what you really get and what you're still a little shaky on. So you might want to use your study group time to work on homework together, or to go over it and help each other out. Obviously, you have to do that within whatever requirements your professor set up in terms of how much you're allowed to, how much your homework needs to be individual work versus if you can get help with it. You might want to quiz each other. You can create a group Quizlet, or you can just do more informal, writing questions from the material and then quizzing each other on that. You might want to work together to create a study guide. So again, maybe different people take different sections of the material and put together some highlights and some notes, and then you can share that with each other. Something else to think about is to have a watch party. So a lot of instruction is happening through videos right now, either professors' own recordings of something, or your professors might be sharing a YouTube video or something else that they want you to watch. So you can have a little watch party where you're all connected on FaceTime or whatever platform you want to use, and you're watching the video, but then you can pause it. You could say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't understand that part. What did he mean by that? Or, hey, can we rewind that and look at that again? As long as you're helping each other out, that's a great use of your time. You can even be a little bit more formal and try to come up with some discussion questions for each other, or quiz each other a little bit on what you just saw in the video. So all of these are great ways, and it is totally fine if you have a study group and your only purpose in that is to just be connected to other people. So maybe you just have a video feed on and you're all just sitting there going through the chapter yourself, but you know that there's somebody else there with you. Sort of like you might be sitting in the library and you look around and you see other students there and you say, oh my God, I'm not the only one who's got all this work piled up. It can help you feel better, and it can give you that support. And that is totally legitimate if that's what everybody in the group decides that they want to do, is to just have a little support system. You guys can talk about how's it going, how's the semester going? Oh my God, my little sister's driving me crazy. Totally fine to talk about that stuff. Don't let that be the only thing you do unless that's actually what you want to do. So again, that comes back to talking up front about what your expectations for. Because if one person is joining a group because they really want to have some dedicated time to work on stuff and the other people just want to chat, that can be really frustrating for everybody. So there's no one right answer about what you do, but the main thing is just to communicate with each other. So Jennifer says people actually pay for remote readings where they work quietly together. That's cool. I've seen even some companies have this system now where you can get a computer monitor that's like next to you and there's a webcam on a colleague, so that you can just feel like you can look over and see another human being there, even though they aren't really there. Introverts are probably thrilled to death right now to not have to waste their time being around other people, but just keep this in mind. Even though we're remote, and even though you can't meet up at the library or talk to other students in class about studying, that there are some options for working together to help you understand your material. So that's study groups. So we're going to switch gears now, and we're going to talk about how the heck do you do a group project when you never actually get to meet the other people in your group, and when you can't get together in the library to work on it, or you can't get together during class. Maybe your professor doesn't have it structured where you have dedicated class time to work on your group project. How the heck do you want to do this? And why the heck is your professor doing this to you? And that's a whole other question, but just know that by doing group projects, you're going to be learning skills. You're going to be learning to collaborate and work with other people and solve problems together. And those skills are going to be more and more important through classes and in your work life as well. So there's some particular challenges around doing group projects in a remote world. One is just producing high quality work, because it's harder. It's definitely harder when when you can't be together. Um, Issues around coordination, around who's doing what and what the roles are, can be more challenging. Just the actual aspect of getting together to talk and to work on things and to share feedback with each other, to collaborate with each other, that's very different in a remote world than it can be if you say, hey, let's meet in the library for an hour after class. And then finally, just building that sense of connection and that sense of community with the other people on your team is also a lot harder, especially if you've never even met them, if you've never been in class together even once. And so, you don't know who these people are. So we're going to talk about some things that you can do to address some of these challenges. So how do you make it work? Now, it may depend, some of your professors may assign groups randomly. Some of them may let you choose who's going to be in your group. Either way, it's a really good idea to take some time at the beginning and just get to know each other. Just find out about each other, who you are, what you're doing in school, what your plans are, what do you feel like are your strengths and your weaknesses, and then how can you use that in the group setting to work on the project together. Having that connection to other people will help you just feeling like you're more part of the community, and also help you be more accountable and responsible to the other people in your team, and maybe make you put in that little extra effort because it's helping out your teammates who you know as people. So you definitely need to take some time at the beginning to plan out what the project is. And that starts with getting a really good understanding of what the assignment is. So get your hands on everything you can find that your professor has said about the project. Is there a rubric for it? Is there a checklist? Are there guidelines? Are there examples? Really dig into that and make sure that you get a really good understanding of what it is that you're supposed to do, and talk to your other teammates about that and see if everybody has the same understanding. Certainly go to your professor if you have any questions, if you want clarification, or if you just want, hey, this is what we understand. Are we on the right track? They want to help you. They're there to help you. You want to plan out what the different deadlines are. Some professors may have a project scheduled where you're turning something in every week along the step, and that's great. And if they do, that'll be a good tool to help you guys move along. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you might just have like a one midpoint check-in and then the final project's due, and that's it. So if that's the case, you need to come up with a project schedule. You guys work together in your team. You work backwards. Think about what do we have to turn in at the end? What do we need to do before that? What are all the things that we need to do? Come up with a schedule, figure out who's going to do what. It can be really helpful if you have a shared calendar that you can use that with what your deadlines are, what your meeting dates, and so forth. And then lastly, communicate within your team. Again, always important, especially important remotely. Figure out what your schedule is. When are you going to meet? What platform are you going to meet on? How are you going to share work? What are you going to do if there's issues? How are you going to deal if somebody's not getting done their part of the project? How are you going to deal with that? Talk all those things through, be totally open to be honest and talk to each other, and talk to your professor, because again, they're there to support you. So Jennifer's saying yes. So Canvas calendars is a really helpful tool that you can use. So let's talk a little bit more about some of these tools for meetings. So first of all, for working on a group project, you want to have some kind of communication tool. So just like we talked about with study groups, you might want to use Zoom or WebEx or FaceTime or some other virtual web conferencing tool that you have access to. You also might want to set up a group text like a group me, or you might want to have an email group that you can communicate within. Ideally, you can use some of the great tools that are built into Canvas. Some of these your professor has to set up. Some of them you can use yourself. There's a collaboration tool in Canvas where you get a shared space where you have like your own team your own team calendar within the class and your own discussion boards within the class and so forth. If you don't have that set up, you could ask your professor if they can set it up for you. That's called, I'm going to put it in the chat. That's called, whoops, click over here, sorry. I'm sorry, here we go. So that's all set up in Canvas, and your professor can either create it or they can just click a button so that you can create your own groups. And if they're not sure how to do that, there are some resources to help them figure that out. And there are other platforms like Slack and so forth that are really good project management tools. So if you're in a class where you've got a pretty complicated project, you might want to use some of those tools as well. So you can communicate through different ways, and then you also want to be able to share your work together. So think about what kind of shared workspace are you going to use? Are you going to use Dropbox? Are you going to use Google Drive? You can use OneDrive with your Microsoft account that you have as an HCC student. I listed Teams, but you can't. I don't think that you guys have Teams created for you to use right in this way. So, right, okay. So Jennifer says Slack and Trello or some other tools. So there's some great collaboration tools that, again, have been around, but they're getting better and better. And many of them you can use for free and get access to some of the tools. And then if you have a paid account, then you get full access. But lots of different ways to help you. So you want to be able to communicate with each other. You want to know how you're going to do that. You want to know how you're going to share the work that you're doing with each other. To the extent that you can do that within Canvas, that's great. Or if you want to just do that on your own through some of the other tools that are available, then that's another option as well. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is to consider developing a group contract for a big group project. And the bigger the project it is, the more important this can be. Some of the things that you might want to include in it are just who's on the team, what are your roles, how do we get in touch with each other, what are some of our strengths that we want to make sure to build on. Maybe you've got one person who's really good at graphic design and you want them to create some of the visuals for a presentation. What are your ground rules? What are your expectations for participation? How are you going to communicate? What's your timeline? What do you need to have done by when? What are some of the problems that might come up? How are you going to deal with conflict? What do you do if there's somebody in your group who's just not doing their work? And then get everybody to sign off on the contract and say that they agree to it. And that can be a really powerful tool. Just having these conversations at the beginning is so helpful. And then having this that you can come back to later if there are problems that arise, it gives you a tool that you can use. So that is the end of my presentation. Let me turn off the screen sharing and come back to you. So I know we just covered a whole lot of material in quite a bit of depth. So I'd like to hear from you. What did you hear that you liked? What are some new ideas that you've heard? What's something that you want to try? What are some questions that you still have or concerns or I still don't get how I'm going to do this? What questions do you have? You can type them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like, and then Jennifer can unmute you.
And while you're thinking of your questions, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat to the library page for life hacking, where you'll be able to find recordings. You can find last week's recording there already. And this week's, once it's available on YouTube, I'm going to put it up there too, because usually that's one of the questions we get is this being recorded and where can I get the recording? So I wanted to make sure that y'all knew the answer to that. So now you can focus on the study groups and staying together.
Awesome, thank you. So Marlinda, I see you're in the call. I'm going to pick on you. Well, what other tips would you share with students?
agree with everything you guys said. Basically find it, like one of the students mentioned Google Meet. So if you just have a Gmail account, that's a wonderful way to just sort of meet up with each other, you know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So working in the library, you're used to seeing students
Lots of
get
group
together.
works together and do studies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Study sessions and yeah.
We even had little portable whiteboards they could carry
Yes,
around.
exactly. They can check out and exactly.
I know.
And we have dry erase boards in our study rooms, so that was helpful for them. So yeah. But with the whiteboards that, through Office 365, there's a whiteboard option too, so they can do that too as well. And in the WebEx rooms, they have whiteboards. I believe Google has something similar. Maybe they do.
Yeah.
They can still do a study kind of session that way, just in a virtual realm. That's all.
So Microsoft Whiteboard is something that you can, as students, get access to the whole Microsoft Office for free with their login, and you have to download Microsoft Whiteboard, but it's a great tool, and it's really powerful and easy to use. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
We
you can
just put
find
in
it
the
through your
tip
email
that,
pages too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go to your HCC email, which is on Outlook, you'll see the little boxes up in the left corner, and you'll want to click to see all the different software that's available, because there's a lot of cool software available.
Yes, exactly. The little waffle app, little boxes that look like waffles. You can
Yes.
find all of that. That's what I start calling
Whenever
it
you
now.
see boxes or dots, just click on them, because there's
Yeah.
probably something interesting
More
hidden there.
information, more options for you.
Okay, what else? Questions, comments? What about for the faculty and staff that are on the call right now? What are you finding helpful just to work together, just on projects and on, what you need to do for your job?
We've done, Jennifer and I have done a virtual like Friday happy hour after hours, just to converse and chat and talk, and we've done that. We also have a team channel that we're very active on, so we keep each
Where we
other
post our Bitmojis.
Yes, yeah. Bitmojis is a big thing for us right now, so we've been doing little. Just sometimes the Bitmoji lets you know exactly how we feel. What a week, or phew, it's relief or
We're
whatever.
all being rained on.
And it just helps build that sense of community, right? So that you don't feel as isolated, and you feel like you've got other people that you can go to. And I mean, I think that's helpful. That's helpful for us as employees of HCC, and that's super helpful for students to get that connection.
And I wanted to mention that my undergrad was a satellite campus. I was a remote student for most of it. So I actually did a lot of my undergrad, my mostly junior and senior classwork online. And actually, the first semester, they didn't have an online platform yet. And so we did it all through email. So if you're looking for advice from someone who has lived this a lot for both undergrad and my first graduate school, a lot of those classes were online too. I've done this a lot.
Okay. I think
So you want any tips?
That's a good point. And I would say for our students, the higher you go in your education, the more and more group projects you're going to have. So you might not have a whole lot in your first and second years of classes, but if you're planning on transferring to a 4-year school, you're going to find when you get into those upper level classes, you're going to have a lot more group projects and big projects and such. So that the more you can kind of get comfortable with some of those skills now, the more helpful that will be.
Own strengths. Know what you're really good at. Like I'm good at editing and copy editing and proofreading. So I try to be the last person to touch a group project, because I want to make sure there's no typos in it. So it's a good idea to be aware of what your skills are and what's important to you in a project that you're giving in as a group, so that you know what you can contribute to your group.
Right, that's true.
Exactly.
And then we know that employers are we all hate group I don't know. Most people
Group projects can
are
be
not crazy about doing group projects, but there is value in them because you do learn skills, you build skills, and we know that when you go to get a job, when you go for a job interview, they're going to say, "Tell me about a time you worked on a project with other people. What were some of the challenges that you had? How did you respond to that?" And so if you have these experiences, then that gives you something that you can say, "Hey, yeah, I worked on this I had this, even if it's a class project, I had this class project and we have to do this and da 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 da." And so it gives you some experiences where you're getting better at it, and then you can talk in a job interview about what your skills are as well.
And especially
So
keep track of the conflict
interesting.
management.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's great, Jimmy. So you guys are
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
You're doing a charity project, and so you're using Slack and Trello and Google Drive. Yeah,
That's great.
that's great. I find my experience at HCC is that as employees, right, for faculty who their job is to be a professor, or for staff people, whose job is to work for the college, find that HCC is a little behind the times on some of this technology stuff. And I think now everybody's great at sharing files and having virtual meetings and stuff. But I mean, a year ago, there were very few people there's some departments that were doing this, but overall, not very much. And so I think I think that's really interesting, Jimmy. What's that?
Yeah, we do it a lot in the library.
Okay.
So libraries are always ahead of everybody else, though.
Well,
That's
because we like technology, but also because we're scattered all over Houston.
Yes, exactly.
That's good. That's
we're
good.
all over the place.
But Jimmy, I bet
that works for us.
I bet if you asked your professors, and if you asked, some of the people who work at HCC, I would bet you that you probably have better skills on some of this stuff than most of them do. And they have, everybody has their own strengths and skills, right? I mean, they're good professors, and and all of that. But we know that even without COVID, this was getting more and more important and more a part of our lives. So, try stuff, try it out. And if you hear somebody mention something, check it out, and just, build your own skills as much as you can right now.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, well, I think we are about at our end. And if any other questions, comments? Thanks, Pamela. I will, Jennifer, I'll send you the presentation so you can upload it.
Okay, great.
Okay. And I'm going to add in Google Drive. Now, what was it called? Google Meet?
Yeah, Google Meet.
Okay.
It's kind of like Teams, but it's all through Google, your Gmail, and it's nice. I've had meetings in there, sessions and things like that with people that are not at HCC.
Okay.
So it's nice. Yeah.
Does it have other support tools? Like, can you share files and all of that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And the nice thing about Google is that it's not linked to your HCC account, so
no, it's your
you'll be able
Gmail.
to take it with you.
With
You'll be
you,
able to take
exactly.
it with you after you've left HCC.
Exactly.
Once you've moved on.
Right. Because we shared. You're right. Because we shared slides, and it's still with me. Under the shared folder. Yeah, exactly. So it's wonderful to do that. Plus, the people that I was working with were at other campuses in Texas, but not HCC. They're not HCC people. So, although librarians elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, Jimmy. So multiple people can work on documents
at the same time. Yeah. Exactly. And it's great when you're brainstorming and things, and you need like Jennifer mentioned, she likes being the copy editor. I like to see the big picture of things too. I do that as well, Jennifer, the copy editing at the end, because you don't want to see like misspell things or, major things left out. So thank you, everyone. This was great.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. Jennifer, do you want to do a wrap?
Well, yeah, like I said, you'll be able to find the recordings and the slides at the life hacking page, which is library.hccs.edu/lifehacking, which this page does link to the HCC presence page, which also has information about life hacking. I just haven't memorized that link yet. Nellie, did you want to say anything before we close? Nellie is also helping out with this life hacking.
Hi, Jennifer. Yes, first I wanted to say thank you to Laura and all our attendees for joining us today. I did want to remind everyone that everyone who did attend today's workshop will be entered into a $25 gift card drawing. So be sure to check your HCC email by the end of the week to see if you won. Last week's raffle winners were Julissa Hernandez, Eva Brooks, and Gok Vinlay. So they did receive those gift cards at their HCC email. And then I also do have the link to the future events that we will be having, because like I said, we do have these every Tuesday for the rest of the semester at noon. Let's see if I can find that link. Here we are. Cool. Alrighty, so I just entered our link there. If you guys want to check it out and RSVP to any future events, you can do that on there. And once again, thank you all for joining. If y'all have any questions at all, you could also visit us on the HCC presence page, which is on that link. And then you can just click Student Life on there, and you can contact either me or Dominique on there. And we have all the information about the recordings, future and past recordings. All righty. Well, thank you so much, everyone. If y'all have any questions at all, you can put them in the chat box right now, and I can help you with that. Or I can just send you my email, and you guys can shoot me an email on there.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to stop the recording and then wait a couple seconds.